Hi, Cutie Pies. It's Lanickia, and I'm coming to you with Season 4, Episode 3 of A Million Little Things called Game Night. So, just getting right into it, we see Peter is in the hospital, and his wife is there, and she's on the phone with someone, and she just pretty much says she doesn't know how this happened, but, she just came home, and she could barely recognize him because he was beaten so bad. And she doesn't know who would do this, why they would do it, but that's where they are right now with him. So then the detective comes in and he asks her questions about, is there anything, um, is there anyone that would want to hurt him? And she's like, no, everyone loves him. And they're like, what about the school? And she was like, no, the students love him. They have so much, you should hear the things they have to say about him, or they have so much to say about him. And he's like, yeah, I bet, because, I don't know why he's not telling her, what, like, I guess why he's not telling her that, her husband was being investigated, but he's not. And so she's completely in the dark about all the activities that he's been having going on at the campus, inappropriate activities and everything. Or just to keep, and not just inappropriate, but just assault. And so, but that's how that ends, where she's just trying to figure out what's going on with him. And she says the only thing she can think of is that it was a man in a dark SUV that was outside of their house a while ago, and he had a beard. And of course, the detective automatically thinks Gary, because Gary was at the police station. He kicked the trash can. We've already know the detective has him on the radar. Okay, so then we see so Catherine is on the phone with Regina, and Regina was like, we're going to take you out tonight. And Catherine was like, I don't like surprises. I just want. And so she lets her know we're having a divorce party. And Catherine is just like, what? I know people mean well when they're talking about divorce parties and all that, but I think it should be up to the person who actually wants to have it. Because you never know how someone, feels about their marriage ending. They might say, or put on a brave face with you that, yeah, I'm so glad to be out of that. And that could be true, but a part of them, it still is a part of you that had hopes and dreams ending. But they're going to throw her this divorce party, and she agrees to it. She finally agrees to it and says she's going to act surprised whenever she come over. So then we see Rome and Gary talk. And they're talking about they don't want Ed to find out that they're pretty much they're throwing this divorce party, the ladies are, and that they're happy about it. It's almost like he's gonna find out that his wife is celebrating that she's no longer with him. When you think about it like that, it's kind of bad, but it is what it is. Um, so they decide to watch the Bruins game because it's going to be one of the last times that they actually get to watch it at Gary's apartment. So then we see Ed talking to his trainer, and he was just saying, he's tracked the woman down that hit him, and he's going to find out she is. And the trainer is just like, well, what are you going to say to her? And he was like, I'm going to tell her, because of you, I started drinking again. I lost my wife. I lost my son. I barely get to see him. We have to shuffle him back and forth. And the trainer was just like, okay, and then what? And then what? He just kept saying, you're going to say this, and then what? And then what? Like, what happens after you unleash all of this? That's not going to make you get out of the chair. And Ed is he just he just wants to vent. And he's just upset. And even though he knows it's not going to help him physically get out of the chair, he still wants to confront the person, because it's like, what do you want from me? You're telling, because you want to ease your conscience, you want to tell me what's going on with you or whatever. So I don't know. But the trainer does tell him, you have to stop looking at your life before BC, and he's like, that means before chair. This is your life now, and yes, there's frustrating days, but you just have to move on and everything. But Ed is not listening to him. Ed wants his revenge for what she's done to him. So then Maggie is staying with Sophie, and Sophie tells her that since the whole thing happened, she saw that her friends had like a party, but she wasn't invited, and she said they might think it's weird to invite me because they don't know what to say to her. But the same thing happened with her dad. They didn't know what to say to her, and that's why she and Y'all remember, what's the guy that thought he was John's son? That's why they became so close, because he would actually talk to her about John. Of course, she didn't know he was talking to her about John because he thought that that was his dad. I wish they would brought, like, that was a good little storyline that I felt that they just went away from. They just, okay, that's not John's son. Let's keep going. And I don't know how I'm feeling this season. I don't know. I don't know. Let's just keep going. So I'll talk at the end of the video. So she says, okay, you could come to the divorce party. She said, that's a party for old people. And Maggie was like, I'm not going to take offense to that. But Sophie's going to come to the party. So then we see Gary and Darcy talk, and they are, I mean, it really wasn't nothing. They're just talking about how excited they are to move and, you know, having a little one and all that kind of stuff. And they're just packing up some things, and Gary puts his sweater, his favorite sweater, in the box. Because remember, it got messed up when he attacked that, when we thought he attacked that man. So then we see, oh, and then he tells her about, you know, not telling Ed about the divorce party. Sorry, it took me again. Okay, so the ladies are at the divorce party, and Sophie is their designated driver. And then Shanice arrives. Remember, Shanice is the woman who was playing Regina whenever, you know, in the movie, Rome's movie. Well, remember last episode, Rome set Catherine and Shanice up on like a play date with their kids, and because of that, they became friends. So they invited her to the party and everything, and she arrived, and they're having a nice time with her and all of the ladies at the divorce party. So then we see the guys are at the Bruins game at Gary's house, so they're watching the game and everything. But it kind of goes in separate ways because um, Theo was texting someone, and Liam says, "Oh, he's texting Kiana, Shanice's daughter." And so Theo got all of his feelings because the guys were teasing him. You know, his uncles were teasing him, and he got all in his feelings like a tween would do. And he gets up and goes to his room, you know, and Gary apologizes to him because he's like, I remember when I had my first crush, my dad teased me or whatever, and I don't ever want us to be like that, because, you know, his ended dramatic where the girl ended up getting with somebody else because his dad teased him, and he didn't have the nerves to go up to the girl and tell her he liked her, and she ended up getting with somebody else, and he never told his dad about a crush again. And he doesn't want that with Theo. He wants them to be friends and be, you know, talk and be close. So he says, I'll help you get her back. And he was like, well, she's leaving like after tomorrow she'll be gone. He said, we're going to make a grand gesture. And, you know, just let her know how you feel about her. And then in the living room, it's Rome, Gary, and Liam. And Liam didn't have on anything Brewers. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about it in my mind. That's what. So he didn't have on anything Brewers, and so Rome threw his jersey, and Gary was real sensitive. He was just like, "I'll take it. You're okay. Go wash your hands." And then he tells Rome, "You know, you can't. nobody wants to touch that nasty jersey, or whatever." And then that's when they start talking about Gary's hat, and Gary's like, "Where is my hat?" Because it's the hat that John gave him. When he was going through his cancer and everything, and he had lost his hair and eyebrows. So then we see, oh, okay. So then we see Peter's wife is at the hospital, and her friend sends her Maggie's podcast, and she's like, "What is this?" And remember, Sophie outed Peter on Maggie's podcast, so now she's about to listen to it. So the ladies play a game and everything. We go back to the ladies, and they're playing a game, having some fun. And one of the things was I have you and never have I ever, or whatever. And I mean, it was cute. And never have I ever smoked pot and all that kind of stuff. But then it got to never have I ever kissed a girl. And Maggie said she had done it once, and then nobody else, you know, was drinking. And Catherine was like, Shanice, you kissed the girl, you kissed Jennifer Aniston. And I was like, where y'all going with this storyline? Because you know how you can see something playing out. Where y'all going with this storyline and shit? So anyways, that was that for that part. And then we go back because it's going back and forth between the girls and the guy. Like this felt like a filler episode, and I was like, it's kind of early to have like a filler episode, but that's what it felt like. So then the girls kind of break up, and Darcy, Maggie, and Sophie are in the kitchen, and they're drinking. Darcy and Maggie are drinking, and Darcy was like, "I gotta get this last time out or whatever," and Maggie was like, "Why? Why or whatever?" And so Darcy told her that she and Gary were gonna, once they moved to Lennox, they were gonna try to have a baby, and so Maggie was just like, oh, and Sophie was in there when she was doing it. She was like, oh my gosh, we need ice. Maggie, can you come to the store with me to get some ice? And Maggie was like, yes, because it was awkward. And Darcy kind of knew as well why Sophie kind of got Maggie out of there. Because at the end of the day, that's still someone Maggie loved. And, hearing something like that is, I guess it was maybe a little bit upsetting for her, because, she had thoughts of being with Gary and them having a family, and everything Darcy's getting with Gary is what Maggie had wanted. And she loved Gary and wanted him back, but he was like, it's too late, I'm with Darcy now. But did y'all notice that Darcy they had moved her up last season to regular, and now she's back to guest reoccurring. I was like, okay, so she's gonna leave, but Gary's not leaving. So, and then Delilah, is that her name? I mean, see, she never really had this huge role, but she is a guest this season as well. So I guess she's gonna come. I don't think. I hope this wasn't the very beginning wasn't the only thing we saw of her, because it feels like she would come back when everything, after everything starts happening with Gary, because this is not going to end well with Gary. I don't know how it's going to end. I mean, I don't think he's going to go to prison or anything like that. You know how they're going to do it. Work the writing in. Because technically, he went over there and everything, and he left, but he didn't. Oh, I mean, he did. He put the bag over the man's head and everything, but the father is the one who did something. Like, you did all that, and now you want to be all scary. Okay, get back to this episode, Nikki. So then Maggie and Sophie go to the store, right? And they see Peter's wife, Anna. And Anna confronts Sophie because she's like, my husband did not do that. And Sophie just tells her, yes, he did. He did that. And it was embarrassing. Like, I would not lie, because I know that my family and my friends are going to hear that podcast. And that's not something that I want them to hear. So I would not lie about something like that. And then she walks off. And it kind of makes Anna just like stand there or whatever. So then the guys are going to help Theo with his poster and everything, so that he can give his big grand gesture for Kiana. And then so Ed was going to call Catherine to tell them what they were doing, and they were like, no. And so they finally just told Ed. Rome and Gary finally just told Ed that she's having a party, and he said, dang, how pathetic do you think I am that y'all felt like you had to hide that from me? He felt like y'all are sitting here drinking root beer with me because you can't drink around me because I'm so tempted to have a drink. I can't get in this, I have to live with people. He just feels really helpless. And then for them not to tell him that because they thought he might have been so fragile or so pathetic that he would, have not a relapse, but he would take it badly. He was just like, at the end of the day, I have some pride. It's what he was pretty much saying. So they had to go because Theo says, I need more glitter for my posters. And the guys are like, Rome and Gary are like, you want us to go with you? And he was like, no, I really don't. And like, he was upset. And so Theo was like, oh, the craft store is going to close in like 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. He was like, we're not going there because they're going to the store where the girl worked, who called Ed because, he figured out where she worked. So they're going there because he wants to confront her. So then we see, so Maggie and Sophie are still gone, and we see Regina, Catherine, and Shanice and Darcy there. And Catherine just says, they're just talking, having girl talk. And Catherine says, well, I am on this site that Carter put me on. I forgot he put her on this site. But I'm on this site that Carter put me on. And and she shows them, and they're like, girl, you got so many people wanting you. So they do all these scenarios, cute stuff she could say. But they don't realize she's getting upset. But Shanice does. But they don't realize she's getting upset. So she gets up and leaves out. She was like, guys, stop. And so she gets up and leaves out or whatever. I'm finna wrap this up. So then Shanice goes out with a glass of wine. She was like, I come bury and peace. And so she's talking to Shanice and everything, and she's asking her, how long was it before you got into a relationship after your divorce? And she said 3 months, but everybody is different, and you take all the time that you need. And Catherine was just saying, I feel like everyone's always telling me what to do, because she used the word should, like you should go to get good grades, you should go to law school, you should, and she just does everything everyone wants her to do. Like, you should have this divorce party, you should be happy, and she just like, I just want to do something that I want to do. I want to, if I don't want to do something, I want to be able to say no and let it just be that, handle things the way she wants to. And Shanice understood, and so they were bonding over that as well. So then we see Ed. They make it to the store, he and Theo. And he tells Theo we should split up. And so Ed finds the woman who ran him over, who hit him. And he's about to confront her. And then Theo appears and he says, Dad, did you find the glitter? Because Ed had told the woman, I need to ask you a question. So he said, Dad, did you find the glitter? And that's what stopped Ed from like really confronting her. And so she tells him where it is, and they just go about their business on that. Um, So then I'm gonna wrap him up as well. So then Ed goes. So they get the posters. They got everything together for Theo, and he goes to Kiana, and it's real cute. He just tells her he's reading the words off the posters. Then he finally tells her he likes her, and she tells him, "I like you too." And then that was it. They just closed the door. She closed the door, and he was like walking away. They were happy. That was all it took. And then later on, we see that Ed, the woman calls Ed, and she just tells them she's sorry, and her name is Nicole. She tells her name is Nicole, and I guess they're gonna talk about what happened, and everything. I guess we'll get into that more as the episode goes on. Okay, so then we see that Maggie and Sophie go home, and so she's like, just tell the girls I can't. They go home, and it's not much there. They're just talking. And so then we see that Catherine goes back and she apologizes to Darcy and Regina, and they're like, "No, it's cool." And she's like, "I just want to play a game, and like that just be it. I don't want to go out and meet guys. I don't want to do all that. I'm not ready for that." And so they're like, "Okay, cool. Let's play some games." So then Regina and Darcy end up leaving and going out, and Catherine is doing dishes, and Shanice said, "How is it that they go out and you're the one stuck doing dishes at somebody else's house?" And Catherine was like, I love doing dishes. This is good for me. And so as they're doing dishes, Shanice lets her know, like, I didn't quite tell you the truth. 3 months after my divorce, I did get with someone, but it was a woman. Which, they've been giving us that vibe the whole episode. And so then Catherine said, okay, I understand that or whatever. It was nothing to her. And so, but she did ask her, why isn't it public? And Shanae said, one, because of my career, but mainly because of my parents. And so then Catherine, they were doing the dishes, and Catherine got some suds on her, and Shanice wiped it, and they had some kind of chemistry or something going on. And then Catherine was like, oh, I gotta go to Theo, I gotta do this and that. I was like, what? We saw this coming, y'all. Like, from the very beginning of the episode, yeah, you could just see that this is the direction they were going to move Catherine in, just the way they had everything going. So then So then Roman, Gary, and Liam try to go find this hat because they think that it's in the donation box. So they go to the dumpster, and Liam is so cute because he goes in the dumpster because he has OCD and he can't stand being dirty or anything. But he loves Gary, so he did it for him. And they couldn't find the hat, but he did find the little sack that Darcy made Gary throw away earlier. So they were happy about that. And they had a bonding moment. Now later on, Darcy says, "Hey Gary, I found this sweater or whatever, but it's ripped, and it's your favorite sweater. It was in the donations." And Gary was like, "Oh yeah, because me and Colin were playing Rough the Dog, and that's how I got messed up." But when Gary walks away, I'm like, Darcy is kind of looking like she didn't believe that story, and she knows there's something more going on because they've all probably heard about the man getting attacked, and she knows Gary. So I'm sure she's probably thinking he probably had something to do with that. And I think maybe that's why she's not going to be in the episodes like that anymore. Like she went from a main character to being reoccurring because I figure maybe she's gonna leave him. That's what ends their relationship, and then we'll see this spiral of Gary again. But I don't know. Anyways, y'all, let me see if I hit all these at least points. Yeah, that was pretty much it. It was a filler episode. It was okay. This was just okay. But it wasn't like one of those episodes where you like, oh my goodness. But then it wasn't one of those episodes where we're like, oh my goodness. You know, we still know that Gary wasn't the one. So he did leave the man. He did leave Peter to be beaten up by, you know, Layla's dad and everything. But I feel like these people have more for them to be so close and always be like, we're there for each other, we love each other, we're like brothers and sisters. They keep a lot of secrets from each other, and I know that's how they keep us coming back watching the show. But my gosh, it's all these secrets. But I mean, I'm gonna stick with it, see where the show goes this season. It's kind of going slow for me, but maybe because I watched La Brea. Is it La Brea? Maybe because I watched that and that was and I'm intrigued by it, like, what is going on? Maybe because I watched that and then I watched A Million Little Things. That might be why it's like, excuse me, not moving but who knows? Anyways, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your night.